Welcome back to the Jimmy Mathis Show with you till 8 o'clock. Right now, it is our pleasure to introduce Ted Nugent from tednugent.com, one of the greatest advocates of the Second Amendment that I'm aware of. Mr. Nugent, thank you very much for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Jimmy. Proud to share the truth, logic, and common sense with you, sir.
Well, and look, you've been with the NRA now for how many decades?
Well, geez, I've been a member of the NRA for probably 50-plus years, but I've been on the board of directors very proudly with some of the greatest votes of the members in the history of the NRA for over 25 years now.
Our Constitution in general has been under constant attack, but the Second Amendment more than anything else right now, and it's a challenge trying to defend the Second Amendment when you look at the vitriolic attack that it's under day in, day out.
Well, you know, I've never wasted my time defending truth, logic, or common sense.
Yeah.
I celebrate it and promote it, and that's what got me into trouble back in the 60s when the beatniks turned into the hippies with their comfortably numbnut lifestyle and their abandonment of truth, logic, and common sense and goodwill and decency and honesty. And so I've dealt with fake news way before anybody knew there was such a term. And it's really quite astonishing, but the dumbing down of America has manifested itself in this cultural deprivation that somehow self-evident truth becomes a hunch and a presumption. So you just don't waste your time with those that would force free Americans into unarmed helplessness. And that's really what the left, with the Democrats, you know, they smoke and mirrors it pretty good, but now it's more obvious as we spotlight more and more cockroaches that the Nancy Pelosi, Dianne Feinstein, the gun runners, Barack Obama and Eric Holder, they really want to disarm America, and we're not going to let them.
Well, the problem, Ted, even you have Republicans right now that are buying into that narrative.
Well, I've been aware of rhinos for a long time as well. You know, again, God bless you, Jimmy, because I love Baltimore. I've been playing rock and roll in Baltimore and hanging out with my hunting buddies up in that great part of America for over 50 years now. And I know that goodwill and decency and the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, is embraced and celebrated and lived by the great families up there. But for you to bring constitutionality to the forefront in an honest and an accurate way with the evidence and the irrefutable statistics and history that support good people being armed. I mean, I hate to plummet into the absurdity of trying to explain that our founding fathers were coming out of the hell of tyranny,
right,
and that we wrote down some self-evident truths so that the king couldn't tell us what to say, what religion to choose, and hopefully a press that would monitor the government. Boy, that's fallen by the wayside. But the Second Amendment, I'm just a simple guitar player and a husband and a father and a grandfather and a member of my community, and to be in the asset column, I've got to be prepared to stop evil, hence my keeping and bearing arms. And I am just refusing to accept the history to be re-implemented where forced unarmed helplessness upon Americans is tolerated any further. So we got to keep our eyes on the liberal Democrats and their Marxist, anti-American, anti-Constitution, anti-freedom, anti-gun owner, anti-NRA insanity, and we've got to be members of the National Rifle Association and stand up for this basic God-given individual right of self-defense. And you'll notice, Jimmy, that no one will come on your show with me and debate me because I'll eat their family tree and spit sawdust. They've got nothing. They're liars. They hate freedom. They hate you. They hate me. They hate good over evil. So we got to stand strong, and we got a good president that represents us.
We're talking to Ted Nugent right now. Mr. Nugent, look, Maryland has been one of the worst states in the union when it comes to restrictive gun rights under Governor Martin O'Malley. You now need to purchase a license to exercise a constitutional right. We do have a Republican governor right now, but with the horrific story that took place in Florida, gun control back in the conversation, looking at possibly passing some legislation that would outlaw bump stocks. I mean, they don't even have the rhetoric right, Ted. I mean, they're going back and forth between whether it's a clip, a magazine, assault weapons. Words mean something. And, and that's what we're dealing with locally here in the state of Maryland right now.
Well, I stand with you and all people of consciousness and, decency and honesty that all these proposed increasing gun control laws will have nothing to do. I've been a cop since 1983 in Lake County, Michigan, and I conduct federal raids with the federal agents, and I've been an active cop for all these years, and I study the details of Sandy Hook and Virginia Tech and Columbine and the Pulse nightclub in Orlando and now Parkland. I study San Bernardino. I study what happened in Finland, what happened in Paris, what happened in London. And in every instance, there is not one law. I mean, Jimmy, I'd love someone to pass a law that would keep real Kalashnikov, real AK-47s out of the hands of people in Paris, France. Remember when they shot everybody up with real machine guns?
Right.
I mean, I think there's a law against all that stuff. And I could go on and on with the felony that the flash hider in San Bernardino was. The stock, the collapsible stock was a felony. The pistol grip was a felony. The barrel shroud was a felony. The magazine detach lever was a felony. All these unto themselves. My God, who thinks that you're going to pass a law to stop evil, especially when you celebrate gun-free zones,
right,
which is a welcome mat, a red carpet for evil. So the number one honest response to these tragic slaughters of innocents in gun-free zones is, number one, ban gun-free zones. Respond to multiple red alarms that someone is threatening to shoot people at school, for starters. And Jimmy, I got to tell you, I got a lot of friends up there in Maryland, but there is no Second Amendment in Maryland. There's no Second Amendment in Massachusetts or New Jersey or New York or Illinois or California. There is no right to keep and bear arms, because keep means it's mine, you can't have it, and bear means I got a couple on me right now and they're loaded.
Right.
And you can't do that in those states. So we are fighting constantly to bring back the freedom so that good people are not declawed while the coyotes are attacking them.
Rhetorically speaking, help me answer this question, because I think you're one of the best in the business when it comes to debating the Second Amendment. We have Republicans in the state of Maryland right now that are promoting realistic restrictions. This is coming from the Republicans, not just the Democrats. This is what they're trying to move forward with here in the state of Maryland.
Jimmy, write this down. I hope everybody's recording this. Here's the truth. This is not a Nugent assumption. This is a ballistic, scientific fact. I've studied the cadence, the rate of fire, the weaponry, the magazine capacity, the caliber, and the bullet designs in all these shootings. Write this down. Had the evil slaughterer used the average 12-gauge pheasant pump shotgun with double-aught buck, more innocent lives would have been lost. They wouldn't have had to shot 180 rounds in Parkland. They could have shot 25 rounds and killed at least 25 people. Write that down. A 12-gauge average sporting shotgun for doves or geese or pheasant or quail is more deadly than an AR-15. Case closed, so they can go crazy, or shall I say, they can go ballistic all they want. They are being counterproductive. The goal is to save innocent lives, and they are literally on a wild goose chase, and it's going to cause more innocent deaths. That's what happened after Columbine. That's what happened after Aurora. That's what happened after Sandy Hook. That's what happened after the Pulse nightclub. That's what happened after San Bernardino. I think we all know the definition of insanity, don't we?
Continue to do the same thing and expect a different result.
Unbelievable. If you study where there are more guns per capita, if you look at a map of America, you'll see it's mostly red, except for high-crime blue Democrat smudges. I'll repeat that. The only blue places in America are Democrat-run, high-crime blue smudges. Examine why those are high-crime blue smudges and fix them. Examine why the rest of red America is loaded and armed to the teeth, and it's not high crime. I mean, it's literally like Planet of the Apes flew over the cuckoo's nest, Mad Magazine, Twilight Zone. They're literally lying, and innocent lives are being lost.
Well, and it's truly amazing, Ted. We're talking to Ted Nugent right now. You look at the concentration of gun violence in America. At the end of the day, it's limited to like 3 or 4 major U.S. cities.
You know, I sit here with my 2 Labradors, Happy and Sadie, completely exhausted from the day of morning here in Texas, and we checked our traps, and we filled our feeders and checked some fence and worked on some water crossings, and I picked up my Gibson Birdland and scared myself with the coolest, sexiest guitar licks in the world. And in between running the property lines and getting my guitar, the reason my guitar is so damn cool is because I fired on 300 or 400 rounds through my Glock 10 millimeter and a number of my ARs, and I just had one of my guns cleaned by a new military operation called Gun Cleaners, a veteran-run operation, Gun Cleaners. I think it's at theguncleaners.com. But I take some of my abused weaponry down to them, and they clean them up, and I come back, and I check out the chokes, and I check out the action. I shoot every day. The discipline of marksmanship, the aim small, miss small, thrills, joys of knowing you can defend your family with the proper use of a standard tool owned by over 300 million. Write that down. Somebody said there's 300 million guns. They obviously haven't counted mine. There's over 500 million guns in America. 99.99999% will never be used for anything negative, but they keep going after us instead of the crazy people who say, I'm going to shoot up the schools. You can't make this stuff up. It's almost as funny as watching Maxine Waters try to form a syllable.
Talking to Ted Nugent, I think, use the word negative. I think it's important that we also are constantly explaining what negative liberty is and what a right is. And, once we turn the Bill of Rights into a Bill of Needs, it is a slippery slope that won't be limited to the Second Amendment.
Well, I had somebody ask me why I need an AR-15, and I got to tell you, I got Class 3 weapons. I have a bunch of machine guns here in Texas. And
right.
I'm the luckiest guitar player. You can probably sense the effervescence over the phone lines because I get to train with the Navy SEALs and the Delta Force guys. I mean, these aren't even human beings. These are some super species. They're such wonderful, wonderful commandos putting their lives on the line. The Army Rangers and the Green Berets, they're here at the Nugent Ranch, and we train and we fire machine guns. And every weekend, Jimmy, I got to tell you, this is never talked about in the media, but now we are on the Jimmy Show. Millions of Americans every weekend, Jimmy, shoot millions of rounds of ammunition, AR-15s, 223, and including a bunch of big bullets, way bigger than 223s, like .6s and 30-30s and 270s and 300 blackouts and all kinds of fun guns. And millions of Americans fire millions of rounds with millions of guns every weekend, and it's all good. Here's a little indicator to the bureaucrats out there. Leave us the hell alone. You know who the bad guys are. You know who the crazy guys are. And you fail miserably at stopping them and protecting us. So leave we the people alone. We'll defend ourselves. Thank you very much. Drive safely.
And Ted, just defending the Second Amendment, you have come under vitriolic attack. They've tried to get you kicked off the board at the NRA.
And you notice that? Yes, I'm way too we the people-ish.
But look, a lot of those that are in the public spotlight, they do capitulate to the left. They do allow the left to own the narrative. They do step down. And I mean, again, you've come under attack for years, and you keep surviving. But you've personally dealt with what happens when you speak up and you defend the Constitution.
Well, and I got to tell you, this social media is crazy it can get. I have tens of millions of Facebookers.
Right.
Now, the Facebook Nazis are trying to limit that. They indicate I only have 3.5 million, but I got some people that the government have hired to do cyber security, and I have tens of millions of Facebookers. Facebook just doesn't admit it. And I'm telling you, it is such a minute fraction of a lunatic fringe, just a nasty, nasty, hateful subset of our species that comes on and threatens to kill my family because I murder innocent animals. I guess they haven't got the barbecue alarm yet. But, I mean, it's fascinating. But if there's only one thing more dangerous than a grizzly bear with cubs, Jimmy, and that's Ted Nugent with more confidence. And if I had any more confidence, I'd squirt through the phone and stain you. I'm I'm having so much fun out here recording the best music of my life with the best band and the best crew and the best management and the best family and the best hunting buddies and the best dogs. I'm having so much fun, it's stupid. Recording a new record, getting ready to go on my, I will do my 6,700th concert the summer of 2018, and that will be me with a big smile on my face riding a flaming middle finger across the stage. And that's why people hate me, because I have disciplined myself to a Herculean work ethic, like my brothers and sisters and everyone in my life, to carve out my American dream of positive energy, positive spirit, solidly in the asset column. And so creeps, freaks, and Michael Moore fan clubs hate me. I couldn't be more proud.
Talking to Ted Nugent. Ted, you look back at the horrible shootings we've experienced going back to Columbine, the left using this as a justification on why we need to concede our Second Amendment. And as horrible as these individual stories are, the reality is it doesn't land with the American people. They see through it. They see how disingenuous it is. The terrible story in Florida a couple weeks ago, do you think that it has any legs? Do you think that, or do you think this goes the way of the other individual situations? And what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I'll be 70 this year. That's 70 years clean and sober, Jimmy. Yeah. That means my stuff still works pretty good, especially my logic meter and my common sense, spotlight. I join hands in prayer with my neighbors here in Texas and up in Michigan and people on the road. We have meetings with military and children's charities and generous Americans every day before every concert for 6,679 concerts so far. I know the positive spirit and the goodwill and the decency and the conscientiousness and the intelligence that exists out there. And we see what is going on with these mass slaughters where our government, media, academia, and Hollywood, it hurts me to say this, but they actually side with the shooters when they support laws that would encourage more shooting, i.e. gun-free zones, and going after age limits. A guy comes back from Afghanistan, he's 20 years old, he carried a machine gun, a real assault weapon over there, fighting for freedom, and when he comes home, somebody's going to tell him he can't own a squirrel rifle?
And we're going to run with that on the other side. We are talking to Ted Nugent. You're listening to the Jimmy Mathis Show on Talk Radio 680 WCBM. Quick break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Jimmy Mathis Show with you until 8 o'clock. We're joined right now by Ted Nugent. Ted, thank you again for your time. I appreciate it. You're a Texan. I got to tell you, I've actually got family that is in your backyard in Valley Mills, so I'm a big fan.
Well, I'm doing the breaststroke up the Freedom River right now. Texas is so cool. It's really unbelievable. I've traveled all over this great country, and it truly is a great country with great people, everybody that have always made America great forever. But Texas, my goodness, what a wonderful freedom-drenched state republic this is.
It is a great state, and I just, I want to thank you for the work that you've done with the NRA, the work that you do when it comes to promoting not just the Second Amendment, but negative liberty, the purpose of the Constitution, the fact that it is the Declaration, it's the Bill of Rights, not the Bill of Needs, and we need more voices like you out there to defend liberty.
Well, thank you, and thank you, Jimmy, because I see a lot of Americans finally waking up to this self-inflicted curse of apathy that gave us the Barack Obamas and the liberal policies that have ruined American families across this country and disincentivized excellence. So thank you for that. There's a bunch of us out here. We are not alone. We're
not alone, but we do need more voices out there. I've been on the air for 15 years now. I'm running for state senate here in Maryland on the Second Amendment, on giving people in Maryland their constitutional rights back, and we need more voices. We do. And it could be a lonely fight, but it's a fight that is worth having.
Well, and thank you for that. And because of truth and logic and common sense getting across the airwaves by you and Sean and Tucker Carlson and so many, Rush Limbaugh does a great job. He's not an expert on firearms, but he speaks common sense. There are a lot of great voices. My buddy Joe Pags here and so many radio guys and TV guys are doing a great job. But let me tell you, the left, the liberal Democrats, so hate freedom, and they are so infested with hate that we are signing up more NRA members than ever.
Right.
We are fighting to get policies that truly will save save children. We know what those policies are. Do you know, here's one for you, Jimmy. You're not going to hear anywhere but for your favorite guitar player. I've studied every mass slaughter. I mentioned all of their incidents a moment ago.
Right.
In every incident, you will not hear this, and I don't know why. In every mass slaughter, there were good Americans on site that would have carried a gun had they been allowed to. Many which had concealed weapons permits, but were forbidden to implement them in gun-free zones. There was good, ready to stop evil, but our liberal Democrat policies forbid them to stand up and save innocent lives. That's the real crime.
Yeah, and the work that the NRA does is really stunning, and it surprised me how many members the NRA has that aren't even necessarily gun guys. You know, just because you're defending liberty, defending the Second Amendment doesn't mean, look, you know, I'll go shooting a couple times a year. By no definition am I a gun guy, but I still stand behind the Second Amendment.
Well, I got to tell you, when you hear the governor of Connecticut calling the good families, the good law-abiding asset families of the NRA terrorists recently, my God, it seems that to become a Democrat, you have to literally check your soul in at the door. There are members in the NRA that are heroes of the military that I shared campfires in Afghanistan and Iraq with, that made it perfectly clear, Jimmy, that they were there because they knew that the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and more often than not, they cited the sacred Second Amendment as why they're willing to put their lives on the line. And as I saluted hundreds of flag-draped coffins coming out of Baghdad and coming out of Tikrit and Taji and Fallujah, shoulder to shoulder with Marines and airmen and soldiers and sailors, who made it perfectly clear that their buddies died for our Second Amendment. How dare some soulless bureaucrat claim that we of the NRA, those heroes of the military and first responders, that's the NRA. How dare they reference that we're terrorists when these guys are dying fighting the terrorists? It's beyond the pale. It's Planet of the Apes cuckoo's nest. No wonder Michael Moore represents the left. What a perfect image for the left.
And you know, Ted, there's two things that all tyrannical governments do. First thing is they disarm the people, and they control the media and the messaging. Well,
again, you were mentioning a moment ago that you appreciate a voice for freedom and truth, and there are a lot of voices out there, and we proved that there are many of us that are listening in November of 2016 when we elected a status quo crushing, non-entrenched, non-politician into the White House. But I tell you, the media, the academia, half of our government at least, maybe more, and certainly Hollywood, they're freaks. They actually don't believe in the pillars of what made America the greatest place in the world. They'll look in the camera and say, this is the greatest country in the world, and then they'll attack the pillars that made it the greatest country in the world, including the Second Amendment and the First Amendment. And then their Antifa, Occupy Wall Street, dopers, they give them free rein to destroy property and hurt people. And then they attack me because I murder innocent animals before the barbecue. You can't make this stuff up. It's like, Alfred E. Newman would have rejected this story in magazine. It's so stupid.
I've always found it interesting, Ted, that you have politicians that run on conservatism. They run on the Constitution. They run on negative liberty. And then the second that they become elected, and they win, by the way, they win on these principles, then all of a sudden they believe that actually being a conservative, defending the Constitution, is going to be a political liability. I just find it fascinating.
Well, it is fascinating, but if you study the dumbing down of America, and I know you respect your elders, Jimmy. I'm going to be 70 this year, and I've been paying attention for at least 60 of those years. And the dumbing down of America has manifested itself in stunning ignorance about the foundation of our Constitution and what happened at Concord Bridge and the Trail of Tears and the Bataan Death March and how we got here and the rape of Nanking. You find a young person in America that knows anything about those moments I just mentioned, and you'll find someone that was homeschooled. The point is that even when someone runs for office or is elected into as our employee in the government,
yep,
and they spout support for the Second Amendment, they'll say things that are just bizarre. And I understand the heartbreak and the savagery of emotion when you know that innocent children are slaughtered in these gun-free zones, but then they dismiss the fact that it was a gun-free zone and then go after so-called weapons of war when you know we would never send the heroes of the military into war with a semi-automatic rifle. They're not weapons of war. Weapons of war are real assault weapons which fire fully automatic,
right,
and none were ever used in any of these crimes. Lie after lie after lie. And I could write it out to ignorance,
right,
but unfortunately, it's like somebody said, well, we need to have more education about heroin, abuse and opiates. And I go, really? Find me somebody that doesn't know that fentanyl might kill you. I mean, they know this stuff. We know that heroin's bad for you. We know that smoking dope turns you into a liability.
Right.
We know that drinking and driving slaughters innocence. We don't need education. We just need to be honest and respond to what we know.
Ted, thank you so much for your time this evening. I want to get you back on real soon. I could talk to you for hours. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jimmy. Rock on. God bless America.
Rock on. Ted Nugent. Quick break. We'll be right back and wrap things up. You're listening to The Jimmy Mathis Show on Talk Radio.